Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
And we're back, and we're moving into our first conversation for this morning. We are joined via Zoom by the CEO of the Kolbe Foundation, Virgilio Muriilo. Good morning.
Good morning, Miss Marlene.
How are you today?
Oh, not bad. Thank you. And how are you doing? How are you guys doing?
We're doing pretty well, and we, want to say thank you for coming, for joining us this morning. It's of course we're glad to be getting an update from the Kolbe Foundation, and we, in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic, we often think about how it has affected, everybody in terms of their movement and not being able to go here and there. But we don't automatically think that it also has an effect on what's going on at the Kolbe Foundation. So where we are right now in the pandemic, a year and a half in, and with let's just start talking broadly. Where are we now in terms of the prison? How is the prison coping with the pandemic at the moment?
All right, Gavin and Marlene, the prison has been doing very well, I must say. We have been managing it. We had a few cases. If you will allow me to share a slide with you,
Yes.
I wanted to sort of do a little, summary of how we're doing in terms of the pandemic. So just let me know if you're seeing this slide very well. Are you seeing this?
Yes, we are
Yes,
seeing.
we are.
Thank you.
All right. Hold on a second. Let me just go into slide mode. All right, there you go. All right, this is just a summary of the positive cases in the Belize Central Prison since. Hello?
Yes.
We're still here. Go ahead.
Okay, I heard some interruption in the background. Now, this is just a summary or a synopsis of all the cases that have shown up as positive in the prison since the pandemic came knocking at our door back in September of last year. What we're seeing here on this summary is that we had among staff 4 female and 12 males thus far having tested positive within the prison. Amongst inmates, there were 17 females overall and 266 males. So that gives you a total of 299 positive cases. We have done a total of 1,518 tests, and we've had 279 recovered, and as we speak right now, we have only 20 active cases. All right, so that gives you an idea how we've been doing for the last year. This is pretty much a chart that shows our infection rate within the prison. And if you notice, we had kept it under control in December, all the way through to September of this year, when we started to see see a few more cases than usual. I will tell you that some of this, almost all of these cases that you're seeing here in September are coming in by new admissions into the prison. So we had at least almost 14 cases that came in when they did that state of emergency for Southside Belize City. But we have recorded 59, I think it is 59 cases we've recorded from September or August, I should say, right into September of this year, And this is where we had a little spike. But of those 57 new cases, we still have 20 currently active.
Before you move further, can I just ask one question? Of all the cases, the 299 cases that you've had, have any required hospitalization?
Fortunately, absolutely none.
Okay.
These are primarily asymptomatic cases. As a matter of
Wow.
fact, if it weren't for the random testing that the doctor does, I think we wouldn't even come across these cases. So, because we are doing random testing, particularly for the illegal immigrants who are being repatriated to their country, there is a requirement that they need to present a COVID negative test for
Yeah.
them to pass through or for them to be repatriated. So we find out that when we do these tests, if we come across a positive test, then we go straight into contact
Yeah.
tracing. If we come across none, then of course they just get to be repatriated. So we're doing good.
So
Absolutely no
persons,
hospitalization.
so persons are tested before entry, and then you have a random testing protocol within the institution.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And let me just step back for a moment, because one of the questions I think we haven't gotten answered is looking at how you manage. You have a very large number of people in a small space, and even within some of the cells as well. So where we're asked to social distance, the rest of us with our liberties are still confined by a curfew. What's in place at the prison to keep the numbers, to reduce the spread?
All right. Yeah. There's a talking in the background. I don't know if you'll hear it.
No, we can't hear it, but it might be from the video that you're seeing. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. All right. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Certainly, the COVID-19 hygiene practices does work. It is effective. We continue to be rigid with our screening, temperature checks, hand hygiene, social distancing among staff. Of course, we cannot overlook the wearing of face mask, which is the most critical aside from the hand hygiene. So we continue to be rigid with those, and we spare no one when it comes to that. Everybody, even from a diplomat, has got to abide by the protocol if they come into the prison. Anybody who fails to obey those protocols are simply not allowed to enter the prison.
And how has it been like in order, managing the pandemic, but, finding the resources in order to do that? Because, I would imagine that in addition to masks, there have been other expenses or things that have had, or that the prison has had to put in place in order to manage it so successfully.
Well, absolutely. We continue to invest monies in things like antibacterial, liquid soap, Clorox, because we have to be sanitizing the bus right now. Right now, we're at a stage where we are doing sanitization of transport vehicle that brings in staff and takes out staff, because what we see happening in the community definitely can have an impact on the prison if we're not rigid with our protocols. We had Honorable Karim Musa in December last year had solicited a very beautiful, handsome donation, I should say, from, I think, the Pan American Health Organization, with quite a substantial amount of masks, chemicals, antibacterial chemicals, sanitizers, face shields, PPEs, etc. So we continue to use those. We might still have a little bit remaining, and we buy the difference, or we buy the other ones that have depleted by today, such as the Clorox and the hand sanitizers and so forth. But certainly we are investing, and we have to do it because at the end of the day, it has kept the prison relatively clear of the virus.
Yeah.
What you see happening in the community right now is not happening in the prison. We seem to have it very much under control. What I can tell you though, 2 weeks ago, I had taken the decision to put the prison on a full lockdown in the sense that no in-person visits could continue. And that in itself seemed to have mitigated quite a number of the cases, because it prevented it from spreading further. And that is why we're down to 20 right now, and hopefully those should be cleared by next week.
And I guess that's part of the question that I was asking earlier, because when you introduce additional restrictions on the prison population, they already have very few liberties. Those include visitors and it's not for all. What has been the response?
Well, the response, I think by now, a lot of the prisoners have matured and they have realized now that this thing is serious and that, whatever the prison is doing is in their best interest. I think by now, because of we have an educational campaign on the radio station that we have in the prison, where we keep emphasizing that in prison we cannot social distance. It is just too many people. Our current population right now is 1,045 inmates, and coupled with that is 237 staff. So it's not a little bit of people in this one central location.
Yeah.
And by now they have matured since last year, and they now realize that and then they're listening to the news daily, so they're hearing about the 5 deaths on Friday and they're hearing about the 4 deaths yesterday. Believe you me, that's scaring the hell out of them. It's like we've had 422 deaths thus far. Not one is from the prison, unlike other prisons where I see they have quite a lot of deaths.
Yeah. In some other countries, the prisons are battling outbreak after outbreak. But let's come back to another area, the vaccination mandate. I believe visitors now must be vaccinated or show proof of vaccination to visit inmates?
Absolutely. We've taken that position. As a matter of fact, when we heard that that was the way the government would have been going with the whole issue, we had already sent out our memorandum to our staff, sort of notifying them that they would need to, those persons that never wanted to vaccinate for whatever reason, would have needed to present their either a PCR test or a rapid test that was have been taken, let's say, at least 2 to 3 days prior to show that they're negative. And then aside from that, we also sent out a notice to the inmates telling them that they need to tell their people that they would need to present similar, either a vaccination card or some kind of proof that they are negative for the virus. And we're going to enforce that, because at the end of the day, it seems to be the norm. I was just reading an article yesterday where, a California judge ruled that, prison officers or correctional staff must be vaccinated. And we don't need to reach to the courts to tell our staff that they must be vaccinated. I don't think we need to reach that level. At the end of the day, we are a prison, and our mandate is to hold people accountable to laws that they have broken. And I don't know, what sense that would make that we ourselves are not ready and willing to follow.
Yeah. So what is the vaccination rate for staff and the prison population?
All right. I have that on this slide right here.
Okay.
If you look at this slide, it is showing that when it comes to the inmates, we have a 55% vaccinated thus far. When it comes to the officer percentage, that is the guys in the black uniform, 79% of them have been vaccinated thus far. And as for the civilian staff, 90% of them. So we have an overall average of 60% of the entire prison population, staff and inmates lumped together having been vaccinated. This number, I believe, has changed since it was last updated a couple of days ago. I imagine, because I know of a few staff who since October 1st have decided, finally, listen, I need to go and get my vaccination, because literally if they cannot present this negative test or this vaccination card, we're telling them you cannot enter the prison, and simply you're going to be looked at as absent from duty, and you're going to be disciplined for that. So since then, I have heard of a few who have gone and done it. So I know this number will change drastically within a few days.
You have a higher average than the country?
Yeah, I was looking at, first of all, just the fact that this data is being compiled like this, as well as the numbers are showing that this is something that is being taken very seriously at Kolbe Foundation. Can you talk a little bit about how the staff has been sort of reacting, working along with not only the vaccination, but also in enforcing some of the COVID protocols within the prison?
Well, Gavin, believe you me, we don't have much difficulty with prison staff enforcing rules. Remember, prisons are all about order and discipline. Prisons are all about enforcing rules. And, the staff, they enforce it on the inmates, they enforce it on the staff, on their fellow staff. So we don't have a difficulty with it. As a matter of fact, we are not getting any backlashes from our staff with respect to this mandatory vaccination situation that regulations have recently been passed on. I think what we are getting right now is their compliance. For their own reasons, they have, they have their own reasons why they never wanted it. But, educating them and showing them what is happening in the society, they're very proud, as a matter of fact, to know that, the Belize City, particularly where most of the cases are in, and quite a number of our staff are from Belize City, and whatever they're practicing on the outside and the inside, despite what is happening in Belize City, we continue to see a very low number of positive cases in the prison. So to me, that is remarkable.
Yeah.
The vaccination does help, no doubt about it. Now, one of the things I want to point out here is that aside from those persons who tested positive, whether staff or inmates in the prison, that is, we have had almost another 100 of our staff, both civilian and officers, who had tested positive whilst in their communities and had to be quarantined or isolated for a period of time, anywhere from 10 days to 14 days, until they were properly cleared or recovered. Then they were allowed to come back. So, but it has not affected the prison so much. We managed to bring in people to work overtime and cover the locations or the positions. The only thing with that is that, we didn't want to burn out our people, because quite a number, like I said, 97 others since the pandemic came to Belize had tested positive. And again, asymptomatic cases mostly.
Yeah. Now, it's your biggest risk would be from the staff that has to travel back and forth, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Are they subjected to the random testing as well?
Absolutely, they are, especially and particularly so if one of them tests positive, because we have a barracks where we have officers camp when they're on their shift, because they do a 7 days on, 7 days off shift, right? So once they are here for 7 days, they sleep. And if, for argument's sake, last year, one of our officers tested positive. He was the first one that tested positive, and the doctor had to go on an all-out contact tracing. And we started by checking all those persons who were in close proximity to him at the barracks. And thankfully, it turned out that I think only about 4 others from the entire 36 that were there tested positive. That is if my memory serves me well, because I might have the numbers skewed a little bit.
Yeah.
And apart from, the staff, one of the things, and we mentioned very briefly a little bit earlier, which I imagine would be a big risk, would be when there is, let's say, an increase or a sharp increase, let's say, of the prison population when there have been states of emergency. Of course, that would be a higher percentage of persons than normal would be coming in within a short space of time, and there's a higher risk because of that. So how is it that the prison is prepared to deal with that when that does occur? Because it has happened, I think, twice since the pandemic has started.
Absolutely. To be very honest, I am very happy for the regulations that just came out, because there's even in the regulation, there's even that requirement for these prisoners that are being admitted into prison to present a PCR or a rapid negative test. and I noticed that it is the Ministry of Health that is responsible to making sure that that happens. So that is good for us. As a matter of fact, I will tell you that last year when the pandemic came knocking at our door, one of the smartest thing I thought we could have done at the time to have prevented the virus from entering the prison altogether was to have the Ministry of Health either post a health officer here to do these rapid tests for staff coming on shift, as well as for prisoners being admitted into the prison. And I think we would have never had a case, but it wasn't something that I got any buy-in from the Ministry of Health at the time. And I can't force them. I was told that, you know, it would have been an expensive venture and all of that, and probably it would have been, but I thought prevention was better than cure. But now that they have mandated it now, I think we should be in a little better position now, and I think that is right up our alley. So this is one of the smartest thing to do, you know, test these people before they come in. Of those 57 cases, like I told you earlier, almost all have been new admissions. I would want to think that maybe only 7 were convicted prisoners who are currently in prison.
Yeah.
And more than likely, they may have gotten infected by a new admission, a new convicted prisoner, or a new remanded prisoner, so to speak.
Yeah. And, you know, if you'd allow me, I'd want to shift a bit from the conversation about COVID onto another topic before we run out of time. C.E.O., you know that there was a recent state of emergency that concluded. And following that, we have been seeing some violent crimes in the city once again, one which took the life of an innocent teenager. I just want to tap into your experience here for a moment, looking at the situation that we face in this country with gang and indiscriminate gun violence. What's your take on the effectiveness of these state of emergencies?
When prisoners are sent to prison under states of emergency, I can tell you with certainty that they don't come to the prison with that, what do you call, that indolent behavior, disrespectful behavior or belligerent behavior. In the prison, we maintain them under proper control. I always share the view that I saw a quote somewhere that says it is easier for us to build strong children than it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And I don't know that we can ever be true about that. The state of emergency, not to evade your question, the state of emergency really, I get the impression to some extent that maybe it is losing its effect, especially if it is only for 30 days. It would be more effective, I believe, if it goes beyond 30 days, maybe up to 90 days. But I think even that comes with its own level of liabilities for the government of Belize, so they have to be very careful with that.
Yeah. From your experience, I mean, in managing the prison, essentially, the goal that you have is rehabilitating persons who enter into the system. And I'm sure you would agree that not all persons are attracted to the path of rehabilitation. What are some of the core issues that you feel perhaps need to be addressed if we really want to be able to tackle the situation of gang violence that we see?
Well, we keep hearing at all of these states of emergency, we keep hearing of lack of job, not being able to get employment. We hear about wanting land to do farming or to build a house or those kinds of things. We certainly know that when it comes to these guys, a lot of it hinges on them not having proper education. You know, when we analyze it, it's like almost 90% of them come with a second farm and below educational level. So certainly education is one. Certainly, you know, lack of employment opportunity is another one because of the stigma. I understand the business community is very skeptical about hiring them because of their past. Some of them have rap sheets, no doubt about it. They've engaged in numerous robberies. numerous burglaries, and the way the criminal justice system works, you have got to have evidence. People could literally know that you did it, but because there is not enough evidence to convict, then you don't. And that is why I think somebody had passed a remark some time ago where they said that in the courts, the justice doesn't have eyes, but in the streets, he has eyes like an owl. He doesn't miss anything. So these are some of the challenges. But like I said, education certainly, lack of employment opportunities certainly, need for a plot of land to build a house or to do a little farming. We keep hearing that. Vocational training for those persons who are not inclined to be academically sound, that kind of stuff. But certainly those are the core issues. Now, another thing I will tell you too, and a lot of it may have to do with ignorance, because I always say that if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. These guys come with some serious behavioral problem, antisocial, really fightful, hostile, you name it. And it is no joke. And I'm very unforgiving. And the last state of emergency, there were a couple of them, teasing each other, threatening each other. We had to get involved and we had to discipline them because we had to show them that we will not tolerate that in the prison. They were literally threatening and talking about wait when we go back, wait when we go back, see what happened to you, things like that. We can't tolerate that in a prison. Sorry.
And so while they are, in your charge and they're your responsibility, especially in such a short time frame of, let's say, 30 days, is there one for you or for the Kolbe Foundation, is there perhaps a goal that you would say that, well, after they have left the prison, you would have instilled, whether it's some sort of sense of discipline or maybe something, or is it simply that, or are you more working with the government and just sort of managing them for the time being?
No, we try to make use of the time. This time around, it was very, I would say, horrible for the Kolbe Foundation to have engaged with them properly, because like I said earlier, we had 14 of them bringing in COVID with them, and you don't want to be around them. That PPE is something very hot, so you wear that for a little bit and then you try to get out of it. So we never had an opportunity to really do some programs with them. To the very end, the last week before they were leaving, we did have, I think it was the behavioral modification group, the government arm, that came in and did some sessions with them alongside Kolbe Foundation. But I think the 1 week was not enough in my mind. It would have been nice if we didn't have COVID and we could have had that face-to-face contact. You will remember that when they had come here in 2018 and 2020, I think it was, or 2019, I think. No, 2020. I had them in my big conference room and I personally engaged with them.
Yeah.
And I tried to show them, well, what I tried to do then was teach them coping skills. I try to teach them that, you're not a product of your circumstance, you're pretty much a product of your decisions type thing. This time around, it was difficult for us to do that. So
Yeah.
even though I'm fully vaccinated, I still don't want to be taking any chance.
Of course. Now, I mean, going beyond the conversation of just the time you have them for the state of emergency, let's look at some of the things. I don't know what the current recidivism rate or return rate of prisoners to the prison is, but as I said before, your task is essentially partly to be able to help in rehabilitation of persons who come in conflict with the law. What are some of the things, can you see signs of persons wanting to change their livelihoods? Are there the job context and the potential for moving into farming? That's one thing, but are there other things that you usually look for to see if these guys are serious, if they want to change their life?
I can see where some want to change their lives, and I can see where I can literally predict the ones that will go out there and die. I'll tell you the truth. We're putting a database together, and I call it database death after prison. We came up with at least 49 these ex-gang members over the last 2 years who have died shortly after they had left prison. I'm not even sure that any of them had passed a year, if my memory serves me well. But we are putting that together because this was one of the reality show that we wanted to present to these last state of emergency guys. But like I tell you, COVID prevented us from getting into the graphic details of it. Sometimes you got to show these people the reality. It's like Nelson Mandela says, you got to talk to them in their language. You can't be prettying up anything for them. That is a language they understand. I always say that, when they are out to kill somebody, they go and they stake out that person in the mangrove. There's snakes and all kinds of things that can happen to them while they're doing that. But they are hell-bent on getting out their target. And I think sometimes you got to be very forceful in explaining to them the reality. The recidivism rate for right now is not looking too well. I think it's almost at 20% currently. Quite a lot of people are not holding up since the pandemic. They're not getting jobs, and it is mostly with these repeat offenders. Always here for things like robbery, burglary, and theft. They obviously aren't holding up right now. So we saw where some of them held out for a year or so, and then they came right back.
Yeah. And just as someone who's so deeply involved in the criminal justice system in this country, what are some of the changes that you would like to see? Very often we have cases like what took place with the murder of Dwayne Gabriel, and there is an immediate reaction, and then it kind of wanes with time until, unfortunately, a similar incident takes place again. But being at a critical role in the criminal justice system, what do you think are some of the changes that you believe would be beneficial in curbing our situation of crime?
Well, I'll tell you what, certainly there need to be more investment in the investigation of cases. I think we've not seen much conviction as it relates to homicides. There's always that tendency to settle for manslaughter, which is not necessarily murder, despite of how calculated it may have been. So certainly I think there's need to be a lot of emphasis on very good intelligence work to deal with these criminal organizations and bring them down. Certainly when it comes to crime investigation, the forensics and criminal investigation branch needs more resources to do a better investigation and dot all their I's and cross all their T's, so that when you take the case to court, there's a conviction. I think that is one of the reasons why these boys, kill and don't worry too much about it, because they know that, on technicality, they can get off. We see that all the time here. So definitely, the prison, certainly, when it comes to the prison, we need to try and see how we can, get more resources for the purpose of rehabilitation, for the purpose of securing these guys so that they don't escape. We certainly need to, I think, put more teeth in the prison's laws, so that we can at least be able to manage these guys properly. Remember, prison is the last sanction available to the court to manage those persons who have failed alternative punishments. And it cannot have weak laws. Our laws have not been updated for quite some time now. And there's some stuff that needs to be changed in there, such as contraband. A guy brings in a cell phone, all you can do is charge him under the code for offenses against prison discipline by prisoners. That's very weak. It is not criminal in nature. It's pretty much for the prison disciplinary tribunal. We need to start charging people for a cell phone and let them face jail time for a cell phone. At the end of the day, they can use a cell phone to call hits. They can use they can do everything. I don't know if you're following the news with the riot in Ecuador. You saw over 118 died, and those things were carried out. Those activities were coordinated from AK-47s they had in the prison, grenades and all of that.
Yeah.
And those things were coordinated with illegal cell phones. You need to look at a cell phone almost like a weapon in prison, you know?
So, so you're
Drugs, again,
talking
same
about
thing.
better investigation, enhancing the prison laws. What about post-incarceration transition?
Absolutely necessary. Absolutely necessary. We don't have much halfway houses. I think I can only recall about two. One, I think both of them would be in Roaring Creek, if I'm not mistaken, and then there might be one, I think, on the highway as well. So maybe three, but their accommodation, I think, is about six. I don't even think they can accommodate 10 people. And right now we have 140 persons out on parole right now. They seem to be doing very well. More than likely, most of them have good support from their families. But out of that 140, I think at least 10 of them might be in halfway houses in Roaring Creek and on the highway. But certainly we need that halfway transitioning houses. And the parole is the ideal way to see that a prisoner settles in well and he readjusts his life. But again, Ms. Marlene, I will let you know, I always look at rehabilitation like Christianity, right? Christianity is here to save the lost souls, but inevitably some people are going to hell anyway, you know, and so that is how I look at it.
My final question just has to do with whether or not we've had conversations with ministry representatives from Home Affairs, from Education. We know that there's an effort in trying to find a strategy to be able to mitigate gang involvement and also to intervene with the issues that we're seeing today. What's the level of involvement from your end? Are you engaged in discussions when creating these strategies?
Absolutely. Mr. Dawson is the representative from Kolbe.
Okay.
And he is very much, equipped and skilled and knowledgeable with this kind of thing. So he has been appointed by me to be the guy when it comes to gangs. As a matter of fact, he's the chairperson of the Leadership Intervention Unit, which is the task force that is tasked with the responsibility to try and bring these warring factions together. But we have very much involvement. As a matter of fact, I believe that everybody is trying to listen to Mr. Dawson, and if they're not, they better do, because I don't know that I have never come across an expert who has very good strategies in how we can resolve these issues than Mr. Dawson.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Muriilo, we are just about out of time, but we do want to say thank you for coming in and giving us an update. Of course, we know things can't be easy at the Kolbe Foundation, but as we discussed, it seems that at least in terms of the pandemic, I think that's being managed pretty successfully so far. So thank you for coming in and sharing all of that this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
And with that, we are going to be taking a very short break. And when we come back, we are going to be speaking all about our webinar about decoding the financial industry. So please stay tuned and we'll be right back after a short break.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.